In this section, we're going to do more on solving multi-step equations, and these are going to be mixed together. So you might have some one-step equations, two-step equations, some with variables on both sides, some with distributing, all sorts of different stuff when you're going through and solving these. So there are 18 problems on the assignment. I'm just going to do a couple quick ones here. So we're going to take a look at number three right here. This is 141.86 equals 17.3x. So we want to get that variable by itself, so that's implied multiplication with the 17.3. So we're going to divide both sides by 17.3. Now notice that even though we're going to rely on our calculator to get the answer, we're still showing this much work. We're going to grab the calculator and see what we've got here. 141.86. So we got that typed in correctly, and then divide by 17.3. So yep, we got it in there. We end up with 8.2. So it turns out to be a fairly nice answer. Now, if it wasn't a nice answer, if it had a long repeating decimal pattern, or was just a really ugly decimal, remember, you're going to round to the nearest hundredth on problems like that. If the problem's written with a fraction, got to write the answer as a fraction. If it's written with a decimal, then you can write the answer as a decimal. And again, if it gets too ugly, then you're going to go ahead and round it to the nearest hundredth. Okay, on this problem right here, I've got an asterisk by this because we've got a couple things going on. We've got a plain old fraction over here, and then we've got some mixed numbers right here. And again, we normally don't work with those mixed numbers, so here's what we're going to do. Very first thing we're going to do is we're going to change those. So that's going to be 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1, so this is negative 10 thirds n. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1, that would be 7 thirds, and that equals negative 4 ninths. Got to show that work even if you're using a calculator. Then we're going to subtract 7 thirds from both sides, so I'm going to cross that off and subtract 7 thirds. So this is going to leave me with negative 10 thirds on this side, and then over on this side, again, use a calculator if you'd like, but I'm going to do this. This is negative 4 ninths, and then a common denominator here would be ninths, so I'm going to times this by 3. So that's going to be negative 21 ninths. Putting those together, we get 25 ninths, negative 25 ninths. So calculator or by hand, negative 25 ninths. And then we're going to get rid of a fraction in front of the variable by multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to show that. I'm going to show that I'm going to multiply by negative 10 thirds. So we multiply by, negative 3 tenths. Negative 3 tenths. Negative times a negative is positive. That's what we want. The 3's cancel, the 10's cancel. So we end up with a positive n over here. And then let's take a look at what we get here. By hand, here's what I'd do. Negative times a negative, that's a positive, so those are going to cancel. 3 goes in 3 once, 3 goes in here 3 times. We've got a 25 and a 10 on top and bottom, so 5 goes in here twice, 5 goes in here 5 times. So on top, we've got a 5 times a 1, which is a 5. And on the bottom, we have a 3 times 2, which is a 6. And you'll notice that that's a reduced fraction right there. So if we were to plug this back in right here and type this side into the calculator, it would give us negative 4 ninths. If we type this problem into the calculator, negative 25 ninths times negative 3 tenths, you'd end up with 5/6. Okay, there's only 18 problems on the assignment. So I don't want to do a ton of them. Sorry, there's 20. So I did a couple on the front side, and then we'll do a couple on the back side. So let's take a look at number 13. Again, we've got some decimals here, so we'll be using a calculator. So again, I'm going to draw those looping lines. Those help me remember not to forget anything there. So we're going to have negative 2.3 times 4. So let's see what we get here. Negative 2.3 times 4. Should be a little less than 10. Yep, so that's negative 9.2. Don't forget the n. And then we've got negative 2.3 times 4.1. So I'm just going to recall that or use the up arrow on yours. I multiply these together. So it should be something a little bit bigger than that. So yep, negative 9.43. So negative 9.43. And double check, make sure we use those correct numbers there. Yep, we're in good shape. And then on this side we've got the negative 81.19. Again, this is all work that you would need to show even if you were using a calculator. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate that variable term. So I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to move it to the other side by adding 9.43. So that adding 9.43 would cancel that out. So I've got negative 9.2n, and then over on the other side, let's go ahead and see what we get here. If we do negative 81.19 and then we're going to add 9.43. Let's see what we've got here. We've got it typed in there the right way. Let's see, so negative 71.76, negative 71.76. So this looks pretty ugly. I mean, maybe we'll get lucky, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 9.2. Those are going to cancel. We've got a negative divided by a negative, so we're going to end up with a positive. So here's what I'm going to do, and one little clue here. It's going to take that answer, so I don't have to type it in again, and we're going to divide by negative 9.2. So that answer is negative 71.76 divided by negative 9.2, 7.8. So we don't have to do any rounding on that one either. And again, if you wanted to plug that in and check and see if it works, that would be just fine. Okay, let's take a look at number 17. This one looks pretty ugly. I mean, look at those decimal numbers that are floating around there. That doesn't look like any fun at all, but let's see what we end up with. We're going to go ahead and we're going to distribute, okay, to each one of these, and then notice that's not in parentheses, so there's no distributing there. So I'm going to do this at the same time. I'm going to do 5.9 times negative 2.8. Got an answer for that one. And then I'm going to do 5.9 times 6.3. So we've got our answer for that one. So negative 16.52, negative 16.52, don't forget the R. And then the other one was, let's see, 37.17. So that's going to be plus 37.17 minus the 11.158, and that equals 140. Now remember, we're going to simplify the sides before we start solving this, so I'm going to combine those together. So let's see what we get there. There's the 37.17. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 11.158. Let's see, 26.012. Okay, so this is 26.012 and the negative 16.52r, and that equals 140. We're going to move this to the other side by subtracting, so we're going to subtract 26.012. So we've got negative 16.52r, and then over on the other side, let's see, 140 minus 26.012. 26.012, so we're in good shape there. Okay, so 113.988, 113.988. And I always like to bring up the calculator and just make sure that I've got everything written down the right way. And then of course we're going to divide by negative 16.52. 16.52 negative, those are going to cancel, so we're going to end up with R equals. Now, that's the last answer that I had right here, so I can just hit divide, and I can divide that by negative 16.52. Whoops. Always a good idea to double check and make sure that you've typed that in the right way. There's our answer. We're going to divide it by negative 16.52. Hit enter and we get negative 6.9. So again, another one with decimals where we didn't have to round, but if you do end up with a really ugly one and you need to round, don't forget to do that.